Hari Om. Yes, this is the time of Navaratri, and Navaratri is the time to invoke Devi and celebrate the Divine Mother in us. She is Brahma Swarupini, but she manifests as Mahamaya. She is the power of desire, she is the power of action, she is the power of knowledge. Icha, Kriya, Jnana, Shakti Swarupini she is. She brings about creation, she ensures that the creation is sustained, and she also is responsible for the annihilation of this creation. She is the one who brings about bondage through ignorance. And indeed, it is she alone who bestows liberation from this continuous cycles of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death upon true seekers who surrender to her in deep devotion. This is the Divine Mother. In the Markandeya Purana, there is a portion which specifically talks about the glories of Devi. And in this portion, we come across various stories of how the Divine Mother manifested herself because of the call of those good ones, call of the seekers for help. Her glories are sung in what we know as Devi Mahatmyam. Now in this Markandeya Purana, there is a portion in the where this Durga Saptashati or Devi Mahatmyam comes. It starts off as a story of a trader and a king. Now the two of them, they are both in a similar situation. The king has been thrown out of his kingdom, and the trader has been cheated by his own family, his wife, his sons. They have taken away his property and he has nothing left with him. And he still feels some sort of attachment to his family. He finds his mind being concerned for them. And he is not able to understand this. Because when somebody has wronged us so much, how is it that I still have love and affection for them? So this thought was bothering the trader. Now the king is unable to help this trader. The trader actually comes to the king for help, but the king himself is also in a similar situation. So he is also he has also been thinking about this, and he has also not found answers. So but at that point of time, the king was in the ashram of Rishi Sumedhas. Now the trader and the king, they both approach Rishi Sumedhas and they both tell their stories and what is going on in their mind at that time. When the Rishi heard out their story, he felt that the main remedy for this whole thing can come only from the highest knowledge. Now this highest knowledge, or knowledge of the self, or Atmajnana or Brahmajnana as the Upanishads glorify it, it's not so easy to grasp. It's not so simple that anybody can just attain it like that. One must have attained a certain level of purity of mind. One must be sufficiently be ready, in terms of grasping this knowledge. A sharp intellect, a pure heart, and the will to know it. The will to that yes, I want to know the highest knowledge. Now all this is needed. But very clearly neither the trader nor the king were qualified seekers. But they have come to the Rishi for help, and the Rishi will never turn them back. So it's always seen that the teacher tailors the actual teaching in such a manner that what the person in front of them needs, it will come out in that very form. This is almost like a law. What we are ready to receive is what really comes to us. And the compassion of the Lord is such that He will give it to us in a way that we can understand, digest, and this would actually help us in our current situation. So the Rishi, having made this diagnosis, he decided that he is going to talk about the glories of the manifestation of Devi, of Bhagavati, who came in many forms when the Devas prayed to her. Now it's always the case, right, that the Devas and the Asuras are constantly fighting, and then there is always these Devas will run for help, and it is in this context that all these glories come up. Now in the first manifestation, we see her tamasic manifestation, the tamasic side of Devi. What does that mean? Mother Divine manifests as Mahamaya, as ignorance, which is tamas. She is also the one who brings about Nidra, Yoga Nidra, and that is also tamasic. So in this first manifestation of Devi, she comes as that Mahamaya and Nidra Bhagavati. Now, right now, she has been covering Lord Vishnu with her Yoga Nidra Shakti, and so Lord Vishnu is asleep, as though, right? Now, we all know from the picture, when we picturize Lord Vishnu sleeping like that, we also see that there is a lotus coming from his navel, and on that lotus who is sitting? Chaturbukha Brahma, right? So when Devi had now as Yoga Nidra covered Lord Vishnu, Brahma ji was also calm and in his own rest. At this time, something irritated Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayana, in his ears, and he kind of cleaned it. And when he did that, a small bit of dirt from his ear fell into the Milky Ocean. Now from that dirt manifested, because that water's there, the Milky Ocean, the Kshira Sagara where Bhagavan is lying, is full of energy of life. And that dirt, when it fell, there came up two Asuras. You have all heard their names, Madhu and Kaitabha. Now Madhu and Kaitabha came out of this dirt, and they had dirty thoughts in their mind, and so they were Asuras. When these Asuras come up, the first things they search, now who shall I fight with? Now when they got manifested, before they saw Lord Narayana, they saw Chaturmukha Brahma, and they tried to attack him. And Lord Brahma wondered, what am I going to do now? Because he can't get up from that place. We have never ever heard of Lord Brahma coming out of his position and fighting anybody. No. So he wonders, what am I going to do? Lord Narayana is also asleep. Then he said, the only way out is to pray to Devi. So we have the Brahma Stuti, Chaturmukha Brahma glorifying Devi and requesting her help. He requests her to come out of covering Lord Vishnu. So Devi obliges, and slowly she removes herself from the body of Lord Narayana. Now Lord Narayana wakes up, and Lord Brahma tells him, Bhagavan, please see, there are these two Asuras that have manifested from the tiny bit of dirt that fell off your ear, and they are threatening to harm me. And that's how I had to invoke Devi. So Lord Narayana smiles. What is difficult for him to take care of? And so he sees Madhu and Kaitabha. Now they are thrilled. They ask him to join them in battle. And the battle between Lord Vishnu and this Madhu Kaitabha goes on and on and on. They were quite powerful in that sense. And Lord Vishnu also was playing along. At one point, Lord Vishnu said, wow, I am impressed by you guys. Well, since I'm so impressed with you both, ask me for a boon. And at this point of time, again Devi came. She came as Mahamaya, and she completely deluded their minds and didn't let them think properly. And at that time, these asuras said, "Ha! You are going to give us a boon. Why do we need any boon? You ask us a boon, and we will give it to you." Lord Vishnu looked at them. "Are you sure about this? You want me to ask you a boon?" They said, "Why not? You think we can't give you a boon?" Lord Vishnu said, No, nothing like that. It just amused me." "Sure, then here is the boon I ask you. I ask that you both should be killed by me." This was the work of goddess Mahamaya, Devi Shakti. They both had no clue what they had done to themselves until Lord Vishnu asked for this boon. Now what could be done? Lord Vishnu very easily destroyed Madhu and Kaitabha. And this is how Devi helped. In her first manifestation, she came in the tamasic form as Mahamaya and Yoganidra, and thus brought an end to the two asuras, Madhu and Kaitabha. Devi's second manifestation was as goddess Mahishasura Mardini. Now this is a very well-known story. The story goes that once there ensued a war between the Devas and the Asuras, and at that time the netherworlds were being ruled over by Mahishasura. At the end of a very long drawn battle, the Asuras won and Mahishasura drove away the Devas from Svargaloka and appointed himself as the ruler of the netherworlds and the heavens. As usual, the Devas ran to their father Prajapati Brahma, who took them to meet Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, who were seated together. The Devas from heaven were driven away by Mahishasura, and the Devas described all of this, how they lost the war, how they were driven away, and how Mahishasura had taken away all their deputed duties, like Varuna and Agni. They all had their respective duties, but now Mahishasura said, "You guys don't need to do it. I will take care of all of that." And he started to rule according to his whims and fancies. They begged the Trimurtis to save them from their plight and end the rule of Mahishasura. At this point, the Trimurtis were enraged at the unrighteous acts of the Asura, and a brilliance emerged from each of them. These beams of effulgence, along with the effulgence of the Devas, merged, and that mass of brilliance materialized as an effulgent female form of extraordinary strength and powers. Mahishasura had a boon that he could be killed only by a female, and thus manifested that female, that goddess, who would put an end to this terrible Asura. The Trimurtis and the Devas also gave their powers and weapons, and thus she was fully armed, along with an armor, a lion vehicle, a kamandalu, a staff, a conch, a bell, beautiful clothes, gems, jewels, garlands, and a wine pot too. The goddess of such splendor and valor roared in a voice that reverberated across all directions and all quarters of the universe. She was seated on her lion vehicle, fully armed and ready for the fight. Seeing this, the Devas were ecstatic with courage and confidence, and they too cried aloud, "Victory unto thee, O Mother," and bowed down in humility and devotion. At this, the entire atmosphere was agitated. Nature was disturbed, and the Asuras too felt it. Mahishasura emerged from his palace angrily, and his Asura warriors with their weapons rushed in the direction of the roar. They were stunned at the overwhelming sight of the effulgent mother. She gave a twang of her bow that brought fear in the hearts of the Asuras. They attacked her with their dazzling weapons, which she dismissed effortlessly. Mahishasura and his hordes, his allies, attacked her continuously, and she kept destroying them. It is said that she got tired of being defensive, and then she playfully attacked and destroyed the Asuras. She then, it's also said, that she got bored of fighting alone, and so she created her army of Ganas from just her exhalation, from breathing out. Now a terrible battle ensued between the Asuras and the Ganas, and the Asuras were being destroyed in huge numbers. Mahishasura then was furious, and he changed himself into the form of a buffalo, attacking and destroying the Ganas. He then attacked the lion vehicle of the Divine Mother, and she bound him up with the Varuna Pasha weapon. Mahishasura had the special ability to keep changing shapes, yet nothing on the inside ever changed. He remained highly tamasic. She jumped on the back of the buffalo, pressed her toes on it, and pierced the neck with her Trishula. The Asura then began to transform into a human form with a sword and a shield in hand. However, even before he could emerge completely, Mother cut off his head. Thus, the terrible Mahishasura was put to an end, and the Divine Mother was serene and peaceful as she destroyed the Asura. As the Asura was destroyed, the Devas regained their lost glory, and they began to come out of their hiding and screamed in great joy, extolling the glories of Devi, singing the glories of Devi. Devi was highly pleased with the Devas and offered them a boon. They were quite fulfilled, yet they requested her to foresee future dangers and remove them. They also requested to shower her grace upon those who chant these stutis with love and devotion. Devi blessed them with all that they had asked for, and she returned to her unmanifest state, Brahmaswarupini. These stutis are the chants that we find as Indradi Stuti in the Devi Mahatmya, which devotees chant during the Navaratri festival. They are highly meaningful, pregnant with deep significances for those seekers and devotees who dwell upon them with sincerity and focus. The more we chant with complete alertness, the chant itself reveals to us deep significances. So we have seen how Devi manifested herself and destroyed Mahishasura. Now it was not just Mahishasura. After that there were many others. Devi Mahatmyam has all those stories, but they're all very similar because it is these Asuras who try to act like they know everything, like they are all powerful, that nobody can vanquish them, and they're always taught a lesson, and in this case by Bhagavati. So after Mahishasura, Devi manifests herself as Aparajita, as Mahakali, and she also makes herself into different forms like Vaishnavi, Brahmani, Indrani, and brings about the end of many Asuras like Chanda, Munda, Raktabija, Shumbha and Nishumbha. Now these are all stories, and these are the stories in the Puranas, but why were the Puranas even written? The Puranic stories are all symbolic of the messages in the highest of the literatures, the Vedas and the Vedantas. So this Markandeya Purana, in which we have seen all these stories, is no exception. So these stories have deep significance for a seeker of that highest knowledge. Now Asuras and Devas are born of sage Kashyapa and Mother Diti and Mother Aditi. From sage Kashyapa and Mother Diti came the Asuras. From sage Kashyapa and Mother Aditi came the Devas. Now even there you see, the Asuras were conceived at the insistence of Mother Diti, at a time when ideally they should not have been having children. Sage Kashyapa even warns her, but she stays adamant, and that's how the Asuras were conceived. And so they were the result of something that should not have been done. And the result of doing what should not be done, the consequence is always negative. And so we see that no matter how powerful the Asuras are, At the end of it, they are always destroyed. On the other hand, Mother Aditi was completely surrendered to her husband Sage Kashyapa and did accordingly, because she knew that he knew better. So this is how Vidhi Nisheda, do's and don'ts, as mentioned in the Dharma Shastras, as mentioned in the Vedas. When this Vidhi Nisheda are followed, then there is no problem whatsoever. It is smooth sailing. But when we deviate from that, then the consequences are going to be harsh. That is the same thing which is depicted in all the Puranic stories, where we say the victory of good over evil. Now, the asuric thoughts which come up, because asuras and devas, all of these are not some people outside us. It's very clearly just a symbolic representation when we say Sage Kashyapa and then Mother Aditi and Mother Aditi, and they had children asuras and then devas. But these are all very much our thoughts. And we also have Sage Kashyapa teaching us dharma within us, right? And we also have the stubborn thoughts like Mother Aditi and the disciplined thoughts like Mother Aditi. And so as a result, in our minds, we have both the good and the bad thoughts. And the negative thoughts, the asuric tendencies are such that they overpower the Daivi Vritti or the Sattvic thoughts or the good thoughts in us, and we have less and less of goodness and nobility when this happens. So this is what Mahishasura represents. Now Mahisha in Sanskrit means buffalo. Buffalo. You would wonder why? Why buffalo? What is it symbolic of? What is the significance of this animal being chosen here? Now, buffalo represents extreme tamoguna, and being highly lethargic and slow, thick-skinned, it's always kind of represents that unwillingness to budge or change. So Mahishasura actually represents that stubbornness in us, that lethargy in us, lethargy to think, not so much to act, because we see Mahishasura very active and very powerful physically, but refuse to think and refuse to think right. So all these are the reasons why probably the rishis chose Mahisha or buffalo to qualify this asura. Now in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 3rd chapter, there is a set of shlokas which talk about impurities that are of 3 types in us. There are some which are something like smoke which is covering the fire. And so if you have seen wherever they're trying to bring up a fire, they fan it. They remove the smoke and the fire comes up much better. So all that they have to do there is blow away the smoke. That's an easy job. Then there are some other impurities which are like dust sitting on a mirror. If you blow, it will not go. So all you have to do is take a cloth and wipe it. And when you wipe it, the dust goes away. That's also not so difficult. Then there are those impurities which are like a child in a human womb. And you all know that it takes a full 9 months for that child to come out and find freedom. So there are these 3 types of impurities in us, some which we very easily handle, just like blowing away that smoke. Then there are those that are a little bit more effort being needed. We wipe it, we do a little bit of tapas or be strict with ourselves, and we are able to overcome those impurities. But then there are those stubborn impurities which sit there and we feel so helpless against them. So that is where this Mahishasura comes. And at some point when we are in that helpless state, there is that goodness in us, some streak of goodness that is left out. It finds that courage and inspires us to pray. Pray to whom? Pray to Bhagwan, to bring us out of this helplessness. to bring us out of the clutches of the evil sitting in us. So the ego in us, for some time, helplessly, it has to hide, because it invokes the divine, because we put in our prayers, but at that moment we are still quite weak and helpless, and so we have to just wait. And that ego now is sitting with faith and patience, and as Bhagwan Sai Baba would put it, Shraddha and Saburi. So patience and faith, or faith and patience, this is what the good thoughts stick with for that time, because invoking the Lord has happened, invoking the divine power has happened, and now we have to wait with faith and patience that this divine power is doing its work. And at that time, it's not like we simply sit back. We offer all the strengths that we have, all the talents that we have in this process, which means it is a tapas. Because Bhagwan also on his own, he has given us instruments. So he says, if you need my help, I need your instruments. And so as our talents, as our body, our thoughts, these are all instruments. And so while the ego stays in the background, the rest of our tools are always available. And this is what it is when in the story we saw how all the gods put in their Shakti to bring about the manifestation of Devi, right? So all our talents, our sense organs, everything is focused in that path of removing that stubborn evil that is sitting within us. And there it's our prayers that work along with putting in our efforts. Just one will not work. Just praying and sitting back will do nothing. Simply putting efforts will drain us and will not be a long-lasting efforts that we will be putting. So both prayers and efforts are required. And so just like, you know, when the sun is shining, the sun rays are everywhere. But if we want to burn a stack of leaves, dry leaves, to start a fire, then we use a lens, isn't it? With focus the sun's heat, sun rays are focused there, and that heat that comes out, the dry grass or dry leaves, they catch fire. Similarly, we need to do the same here. Everything needs to get channelized, and then that confidence, that devotion, that faith in the power of the divine, all this put together, indeed we can handle any kind of asura. Why not just Mahishasura? Mahishasura was one kind, and if we read the other stories in Devi Mahatmyam, Raktabija was a difficult one. So what? Nothing is impossible for the divine, and it's just up to us to offer our efforts in this direction, to say that yes, I want to get out of this evil habits. I want to get out of these negative tendencies. I don't want this asuri tendencies to be within me. So when that resolve is strong, then it is like focusing the sun rays on a magnifying glass. That is what we see happens in the Devi Mahatmyam, and that manifested divine mother is amazingly powerful. So when we see the story of Chanda, Munda, Raktabija, the first three who were all aides of Shumbha and Nishumbha, it didn't matter. She manifested herself in different forms in order to tackle these asuras. Nothing is impossible for the Divine Mother. That is very clearly brought about in Devi Mahatmyam. So when we with devotion invoke her with complete faith, we are not asking her to come from outside. She is not anywhere outside. She is very much here. She is very much within us. And so we are just invoking our own powers, which were covered by ego, which was covered by selfishness. That is now just being removed and getting polished. And then once the asuras are all killed, the Divine Mother just goes back into the divinity. She doesn't need that manifestation anymore. The work is done. Another point that we saw in the Mahishasura Mardini story, which is of great significance, is that Mahishasura is able to change his forms in different ways as he attacks the mother. So here also in us, the battle of that evil and that collective good in us is strengthened by the divine grace and all that is happening. But we must always be alert, because Mahishasura represents that ability of our ego which is always trying to protect itself. It doesn't like itself to be destroyed. So the ego will find its ways, that evil will find its ways in order to stay on, in order to fool the divinity in us, in order to fool that collective goodness in us. And that's what we see even in the story. Every time he changes his shape, once an elephant, once a buffalo, once a human being. So there are so many ways that our ego presents itself to us that many times we don't even realize that it's actually the ego that's doing this job. And so sometimes we find ourselves faltering. And then Divine Mother says, hey, hold on. This is the ego that's coming in a different form and we need to tackle it. And so she also shifts her manifestation, and that's where we have Rakta Bija being handled by someone like Mother Kali, and it's a Ghora Rupa. Her tongue is red because she has drunk all the blood that's coming out of Rakta Bija's body, because that was the only way to kill him. Those drops of blood would turn into another Rakta Bija. Each of those would be different Rakta Bijas coming out. Imagine. And that is nothing, again, just like in Mahishasura's story, he was changing shapes. In Rakta Bija, every drop was becoming Asura. So this is nothing but the negative tendencies in us trying to protect themselves and stay put. And what are we trying to do? We want to get rid of them. So this battle takes a different form when we find the stubborn ego coming up in different ways, because we are now required to be super alert. And that is what is Devi sitting on that lion, and that continuous battle with the evil forces. We too have to be always alert and vigilant and use all our smartness, our talents, so much we have been blessed with. It's just important that we stay alert and bring into effect all those talents and powers in us and handle the negative tendencies which are pulling us down. So every time a negative force is destroyed, it can show up in a different way, and this battle can be a long drawn one, and hence it can be quite tiring. But we must always stay connected to the divinity in us, because Divine Mother never gets tired. Why our physical mother herself doesn't get tired so much? No matter how much work it is, and no matter how grown up the children may be. So what to talk about Divine Mother? She never gets tired. So that divine grace brings out from us those necessary noble forces, and now the ego has been kept at the back. So that alert mind, those set of alert thoughts are able to see the shapes changing, the thought patterns are coming in different kaleidoscopic ways, and trying to fool us, but we are alert. The ego is not allowed to come in the way, and our devotion to Mother Divine is stronger and stronger now, and so we are able to tackle all the negative thought patterns that are presenting in different ways. Now, when the divine force, when we have surrendered ourselves to that divine force, the Divine Mother, and she has taken up that responsibility of destroying the evil in us, of course with our help, the strength and endurance that one gets is immeasurable. It's indescribable how much we can achieve with that combination. So surrender of the ego with complete Shraddha in the divine force is what is absolutely required for those of us who call ourselves seekers, for those of us who have set out to destroy the negative in us, for those of us who have taken a resolve to become better moment after moment. So this evil force, once destroyed, the noble thoughts in us, they gain strength, they get vigor, they don't have to stay in hiding, they can clearly shine forth, and they are completely humbled because the ego has been destroyed. And now what we come to see is all the glorious hymns that are sung in the Devi Mahatmya by the Devas. Those are those in Indradi Stutis. Namo Devyai Mahadevyai, Namo Devyai Mahadevyai, Shivayai Satatam Namaha. In the same we have Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Samsthita, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matru Rupena Samsthita, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. There's a whole list. So this list of Namastasyai, Namastasyai is that gratitude that's pouring out. There's tears of joy, words of glorifying the mother. The whole energy is energy of gratitude and humility. And there, those glories extolling the divinity of the mother, acknowledging that it is the divine force alone that can free one from the clutches of the evil. This is very clearly brought about in the stories of the Devi Mahatmyam, and today we have seen the story of Mahishasuramardini and we have taken a parallel, but it is true for all the stories that come in Devi Mahatmyam. As we worship the Divine Mother as Durga, Mahishasuramardini on the first 3 days of Navaratri, we believe that the evil in us is destroyed, and in the next 3 days, the Mother Divine is worshipped as Mahalakshmi, the goddess of inner wealth, of noble virtues. And then we invoke Mahasaraswati, the goddess of knowledge, both worldly and spiritual. The 10th day is the day of final victory of the divinity over all evil, the root which is the ego. And this victory is celebrated as Vijayadashami. True victory is gaining victory over the ignorance of the self. Not knowing who I am is the greatest of the evils. And so destruction of that ignorance of who I truly am, that destruction is nothing but victory. So in other words, Vijayadashami, the victory, is the experiential knowledge of who I truly am. Thus, Navaratri is a very, very significant festival, especially for those who seek spiritual progress. May the Divine Mother shower upon us her grace so we may reach the pinnacle of human birth and attain moksha or liberation. Offering my heartfelt gratitude to the Rishis and the Guru Parampara who have given us so many different ways to dwell upon the Divine.